Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Untrivial Podcast. My name is Allie Nelson. I hope you all had a great weekend. I feel like I would be remiss to not talk about the news of the weekend, which was Tortured Poets Department. I'm hoping there's some Swifties out there listening. I'm definitely a Swiftie, have been forever. Yeah, what did you guys think of the album? I have been listening all weekend and I still feel like I need 2 more weeks with it to really let it sink in and pick my favorites. But I think for me, standouts right away are So Long London, Love of My Life or Loss of My Life, and I Can Do It With a Broken Heart. It is such a fun song. Over here, we are going super hard on the home improvement projects front. We are painting, wallpapering, getting new furniture, redoing furniture. I don't know if it's like moving coupled with nesting, but I've never been so insanely into cleaning and organizing and prepping this house. And normally I think I would think this is a total nightmare. It sounds like a horrible project, but it's actually been all I can think about, all I want to do. So hoping that we get settled in the next few months. Also, I announced on Sunday that this is going to be my 10th episode of the podcast, and we're doing a little giveaway to celebrate. And I know that doesn't sound like a massive feat, but actually, if you look at the stats, 90% of podcasts don't go past episode 3. And then of the remaining 10%, 90% of those don't make it past episode 20. So I'm going to celebrate this little win. I just wanted to find a way to thank you guys for listening to the show. And so I wanted to give away a pair of gorgeous Majuri earrings, a 40-ounce Stanley, and a $50 Sephora gift card. So if you're interested in winning these prizes, check out my Instagram. The instructions on how to enter are there. It's super easy. It's really just a follow, like, and share. The contest is going to run from April 21st to Sunday, April 28th. So you have a whole week to enter. The more tags equals more entries. So please feel free to go check it out. I know this prize pack is a little bit more for the girls, but that is really because 85% of my listeners are women. And so I just wanted to thank those girlies. Not to say this will be the only kind. I definitely want to do more giveaways in the future and lots of different types of prizes. But yeah, I figured for the first one, this was pretty cute and something that I would want to win. Now, my guest today is Gail Garceau. She is an Essentrics technique specialist and a master trainer with a background in biochemistry. Gail works with high performance and Olympic athletes using specialized flexibility training to achieve peak performance. Her expertise focuses on maintaining muscle integrity for injury prevention and enhancing metabolic efficiency. Today, we discuss what exactly is an Essentrics workout, the science behind the movements and proper muscle engagement, how to stay motivated and consistent with exercise, and so much more. Guys, if you were looking for a new type of workout that is a little bit more of a flow style, that is challenging, that really allows you to dial into that brain-body connection, I highly recommend Essentrics. I've tried it. I really love this more controlled and thoughtful workout where I'm gaining muscle but also lengthening my muscles. Listeners can receive a 14-day free trial to Essentrics at essentricstv.com, which is linked in the show notes. Also, I do just want to call out with this episode, the recording was taking place in quite a large studio, so there was a bit of an echo. I did have to do some sound mixing to remove that echo, but it did result in a slight quality dip in a couple of parts. I would recommend listening to this episode without headphones if you can. It does just sound better if it's either coming directly out of your phone or a loudspeaker. It'll sound a little bit richer. I apologize for that, but the episode was so good and so insightful, I still felt it was really worth getting out to you guys. And now, let's get into the episode. Gail Garceau, welcome to the Untrivial Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you, Allie?
I am well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
So for those who maybe aren't familiar with you, I would love if you could talk a little bit about your background and how you got into the health and fitness space.
Yeah. So I got into Essentrics. I'm an Essentrics instructor. I'm also a master trainer. So I train Essentrics instructors and I work with professional and Olympic athletes to help with flexibility training and mobility and really performance. As a past athlete myself, I played a lot of sports growing up and I really became riddled with chronic pain when I was in my early 20s. I think 18, 19, I had a lot of sciatic pain, and it was really ruining my experience with playing and enjoying sports and working out. And I started doing this program, Essentrics, and I really just felt the immediate release in from the program. And as I was becoming a personal trainer at that time, I was working with clients just for general strength training. And I knew that what their body really needed in most cases was this opening, elongating movements that Essentrics was offering. So I started kind of slowly introducing people to these exercises. And then I discovered that the head office for Essentrics was actually in my city, Montreal, where I was living. So I was able to learn the entire teacher training program. So this was about 10 years ago. And yeah, ever since then, I've been teaching and training, especially I love helping athletes, but really people of all ages achieve their goals and help relieve chronic pain also so that they can do things that they love. And that's, yeah, what really attracted me to this program.
Yeah, that's so important. For those who have maybe not heard of eccentrics, it might be a new term for some. Like, what is eccentrics if you were to describe it?
Yeah, it's such a funny program to describe because if you watch it, it's a very flowing movements, but it's all about elongating the muscle while you're engaging it. So what really makes an eccentrics class or eccentrics workout is that we rebalance every single muscle fiber in the body. So
Mm.
whether you're doing a 20-minute workout or a 60-minute, the goal is that we equally stretch and strengthen every possible line of movement in your body, range of motion. So that is just kind of the brief explanation, but we use a lot of eccentric movements, which are contracting the muscle while it's lengthening.
Interesting. Because when I think of eccentrics, it reminds me of those other practices like yoga or bar or Pilates. And I guess for those who might be curious, like what's the difference between eccentrics and something like yoga, where that too is a bit more flow, gentler movements, lots of stretching.
Stretching.
Yeah.
So I think so yeah, even comparing it to yoga or Pilates, I think you want to start with really categorizing the different types of muscle movements. And so if you look at the different muscles in your body, let's just say you take your quadricep muscle. We have 650 muscles. And if you look at a single muscle and you really look closely at the muscle, you'll see these lines in the muscle.
Hmm.
And it looks like kind of like a bunch of spaghettis next to each other.
Yeah.
If you take one of those spaghettis and you cut it up into pieces, then you're looking at a single muscle cell, which is called a sarcomere. And so the muscle cell, what it does is when it contracts, that little sarcomere slides over.
Mm.
And when it relaxes, the sarcomere expands like this. So if you're listening, your fingers are kind of sliding over, or with the relaxed, they're pulling apart, not overlapping. So you can have a bunch of these sarcomeres all stacked up into that long spaghetti. So when you do a muscle contraction, a concentric muscle contraction. So that's when you're contracting the muscle and you're shortening the muscle. So like a bicep curl, that would be like a concentric muscle contraction, or a lot of pulsing that you would do in Pilates, where you're holding the contraction and you're sliding it over, and you're shortening the muscle. Or you can have one where like a plank where you're holding it,
Hmm.
you're contracting it, and you're just holding the muscle in that position. There's no change in length. And then you can have a type of muscle contraction where you are contracting and you're shortening the sarcomere, so the spaghetti is shortening, but then you're taking the edges of that spaghetti, the edges of that muscle, and you're pulling it apart. So
Mm.
you think about which one would be the most difficult is the one where you're shortening on the inside and you're pulling apart on the outside because you've got this tug of war effect happening.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately in all of these classes, you're going to be doing all these types of contractions, but eccentrics is really primarily focusing on the eccentric contractions. And so that is kind of how I would differentiate really overall eccentrics from Pilates
Hmm.
is, I mean, I love Pilates, especially for helping to activate it activates those deep core muscles, activate and really target, but it's in eccentrics, the goal is that we do that with every single muscle fiber.
Mm.
So you're getting every possible line of movement through the whole pectoral. And you don't want to do that with weights either, because you're putting it also the joint in a little bit more vulnerable positions and ranges. So you you don't want to be doing those intense weighted things or pulsing in those end ranges, but you want to be able to access all possible lines of muscle fibers so that you can, move in your daily life.
Mhm.
And then between yoga and eccentrics, the way it really differs with the type of stretching that you do in yoga is like if you think about like kind of holding a pigeon pose and just kind of like melting in that position, relaxing and just kind of melting it. So what's happening in that muscle fiber is that if there's no crossover, the sarcomere is relaxed.
Mm.
So you're you've got the passive elements of the muscle, which are the connective tissue that attaches the muscle to the bone, but that connective tissue is also all woven into the whole muscle itself, your fascia, your all that stuff around there. So that's being stretched, which is great. It's going to reduce inflammation. You're going to feel looser after. Maybe that's what's holding you, tightening you, but you're not actually building muscle activity from the brain to the muscle because you're not firing the muscle. You might be building a degree of activity with relaxing and also different types of yoga, of course, but just the primary focus in eccentrics is that as we're stretching the muscle, we're also engaging it. So you're building activity from the brain to the muscle through those end ranges so that it's easier to access with your brain consciously. So you can use it when you play your sport or when you're walking or when you're just sitting and you're pulling up. You're not passively just like stretching out your spine. You're really using your brain to target every muscle fiber, light it up and help it lift you and pull you along so you actually can you build strength in that space so you can maintain it longer.
So if someone is trying to visualize, because I think the bicep curl example is really helpful, like everyone knows, okay, contraction. What would be a type of movement that is that equal kind of contraction and pull? Like, do you have an example?
Yeah, well, you can do the bicep curl too. So you can just imagine you're holding a weight. You can try this, Ali. Take that weight and do a bicep curl, like lift like a 15-pound
Yep.
weight, and you feel the muscle. Now take that weight and slowly extend, pull that weight down, and you feel the muscle contracting and elongating.
Gotcha.
Now, what's really cool is I can do that same thing, and you feel like this is my muscle is hard right now. Like you can't see it, but you feel it.
Mhm.
Now you can see it if my sleeve was off. Now, if I take that weight and I just forget the weight and I just extend the arm,
Mhm.
there's no resistance. So this shows how much I use my brain and how conscious I am of the movement and how much I concentrate and focus. I'm going to completely change the outcome of the movement. And there's a lot of really cool studies too that they've done imagined exercise with people,
Mm.
or some people have like the wrists that they've constricted and they can't move the wrist. And the people do imagined exercise for 6 weeks. And the group that does nothing with their wrists loses like 80% of muscle mass. And the group that does imagined exercise, just thinking, actually only loses like 30% muscle mass.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is
So
so
just by how
cool.
much yeah. So that's really what Essentrics is trying to build is this like activity awareness, body awareness, proprioception to every muscle fiber in your body. That's the goal with every workout.
Yeah, that really goes to show how important that, like, mind-body awareness, like, you hear that sometimes, especially with people who are
Yeah,
weightlifting and encouraging bodybuilders to really connect
totally.
their brain to their body, but even just hearing about that study is insane.
Exactly. And well, that's why I think with eccentrics, even the ultimate goal is not to necessarily just contract every muscle. We're also trying to relax. And by training your muscles how to relax, also, like half the time I'm teaching athletes to let go, you're also building that connection and that proprioception because you're like, are you relaxed? Just ask yourself that question. Like, where are you holding? Like, maybe you can actually let go of that area that you're holding in your body. And by doing that, you're building that it's a two-way street, right? You're
Mhm.
you're feeling, but you're sending messages. So you're kind of carving out that path where you think of shoveling that snow on the driveway. Every time you both feel it, release it, and relax it, you get that pathway, that neural connection to your muscle gets easier and easier to talk to.
Yeah, that reminds me even just of maybe some quick meditation practices where they're like, "Unclench your jaw," or like, "Where are you holding?"
Yeah. What is that called? Yoga and Nutri or something, I think.
I'm not sure. I just
Yeah, where they really focus on the muscle.
And even you just don't realize where you're even holding tension in your day to day. And just that reminder of, hey, relax your jaw is such a helpful reminder for people who don't even know where they're not letting go and where they're holding that tension. So to me, it just sounds like Essentrics is all the things. There is
Yeah.
weight exercise, there is strengthening, lengthening, relaxation. Such a cool practice and program.
Honestly, the more I learn about it, just because I work at the office, I'm actually at the Essentrics office right now and helping the Essentrics curriculum and books and workshops and documentaries. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, this is my workout. But I do enjoy, like, I like going to a yoga class and having that like meditative, like just release. And I like a Pilates class just for like learning to recruit different muscles and challenge and maybe prepare my body for a different sport like snowboarding or something, doing a bit more squats. So I like all these other things just to dabble, but ultimately I always come back to centrics as my like daily.
Yeah. I hear a lot about the importance of weight training. And obviously, cardio is important too. Do you integrate all different types of exercise and movement into your day to day? Would that be a recommendation? Or do you kind of stick to eccentrics and then, add a couple other things?
Yeah, the way I really try to like cater my like workouts is, I mean, I think it's important to like ask ourselves like why do you want to work out? Like
Mm,
ultimately what's gonna get you out of bed and working out? Is it because you want to, tone your butt or abs, like maybe that is one of the reasons.
mm,
Or is it because pain? Or maybe it's a little bit of both. So maybe you have to ask yourself, okay, is there a way like sometimes I'll do a bit of like Pilates and I know that if I do a little bit too much, too many reps, I will irritate my hip
mm,
and get a bit of inflammation and then I can't sleep at night. And
right.
honestly, sleeping is a little bit more important to me because, we're trying to have longevity here and feel good and mental health, right? So yeah, so I really try to cater it like, but so strength training, what's the point of strength training? Is the strength training because we want to tone and like harden our muscles? Or is it because we want to support our posture? Or is it because we're concerned about strong bones at this age? So, a lot of things, the strength training is strong bones.
Hmm.
So how do you stimulate your bones is by actually the shearing forces. So your muscles, you have those big spaghettis, right? So they move, the point of the muscles is they move the bones. You have your skeleton,
Yeah.
the muscles, when it shortens, so when it contracts, it pulls the bones that's through the connective tissue. So the connective tissue actually kind of yanking at the bone stimulates the bone cells. So the osteoblasts. So if you want to actually have a little bit of stress on those bones by contracting the muscle.
Hmm.
Now you can do that by putting down that imaginary weight. You can feel that I've contracted my muscle and I'm putting down this imaginary weight. So I'm shortening the muscle fiber and I'm stressing the insertion point of the muscle on the bone. And also just by virtue of how I position my body. So if I'm straight, it's very easy to stand and support my body weight. Now, the more off axis I go, the further away from my center, the heavier my core is now loading up my body. So if I do like a side lunge in eccentrics, I'm loading up my core, loading up or if I, reach my arms out or reach my legs out to the side, I've now loaded up my glute or my shoulders. So I usually accomplish my strength training through eccentrics. Also, we do a lot of lunging and all of that, like moving the body off your center. You're very much strengthening. So otherwise, like I mean, if I'm gonna do like prepare for snowboarding or something, I'm just gonna do more endurance with my plies.
Hmm.
So I'll do like 4 minutes, really getting down there, really like applying neuromuscular techniques, like contracting the thighs, release, relax, and go deeper. And then I'm in that deep position and I'm really focusing on getting into it more. So I would say that's my primary source of strength training is just by how I target my centrist workouts. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you just reminded me when you're talking about kind of your posture, I feel like a lot of people our age are just getting to that, especially if you have a desk job, you're kind of hunching over your desk or you're leaning on your chair. I know I always lean to the side and I'm I am bad for keeping track of my posture, but I don't think it's something people are really focusing a ton on with their exercise routine, but it's so important for just like even our bodies as we continue to age.
I know. I'm really concerned about our generation because I think we got the internet, like MSN,
Yeah.
and so we're really that like generation that like, and probably even lower, I'm even more concerned about. But we're really going to start seeing how that's affecting this generation more so than other generations, I think,
Mm,
with our posture and our sitting, working from home. I mean, I sit 8 hours a day minimum.
yeah.
So I can even feel the effect sometimes. So the thing about, yeah, posture. So with our body, the way that we're holding ourselves every day, what's cool about your muscles is if you've ever done like a strength training program, you can see in like a week how much stronger you can get.
Mhm.
The trainer sets you up. So today you're going to do 8, tomorrow we're going to do 2 sets, the muscles change
Yeah.
fast. They have like a direct blood supply. Your nervous system is talking to your muscles. Now, what takes time to change is the stuff that surrounds your muscles. So that's your fascia.
Mm,
That's your connective tissue, your fascia, which is it's like the sleeves around your muscles. And it's kind of a bit more liquidy. Like, everyone's into collagen.
yes.
That's fascia.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So basically that's the stuff that like kind of shapes but responds to what you do every day.
Mhm.
So the thing about fascia is that it takes a long time to change, but it also really holds once it takes that shape. So if there's like these sheets around the muscles here and they kind of slide past each other. Now, the less that they slide, the more they kind of create bonds
Mm,
and they get sticky and they don't move and they don't slide. So if you're thinking of your posture, how are you holding your body every day? And then are we doing any movement? Are you getting any sliding hydration in between those layers of muscles? Or is it a week of stiffness? Like you ever got like an injury or a
mhm.
broken joint and you don't move it for a week? You take the cast off and you feel that like stickiness.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people have parts of their body that literally just haven't moved for maybe a week, now maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, that you don't move this and you see that like, that smoothness on the back.
Mhm.
That's the connective tissue kind of just becomes stuck. And it does get to a point where it's really hard to introduce any movement in there.
Mm,
It's not about aging, I don't think, so much as it is about how much time passed that you didn't move.
right. That reminds me even when I go to get, like, a massage or something on the back and you feel those knots or if it's
Yeah.
just painful and it's not even the level of pressure, it's just painful to receive a massage. Is that kind of
Yeah.
similar to
So yeah, those are like adhesions
okay.
that form in between those layers. And that's why like massage is great to introduce that movement. But ultimately, you want to get in the sarcomere, as I talked about earlier, in that spaghetti, you want all of those muscles doing shortening, and relaxing.
Yeah.
You want back and forth. And the more you get that back and forth, the more you draw in fluid and you introduce kinetic energy. So like heat. So you literally can take those solid structures and start to melt them. So that's why, with Essentrics, I just want to do just the loose moving stuff. And I don't care if it's a strength training workout. And that kind of brings me back to your question too. I didn't really complete the answer, and how I structure my workout is by getting all the aspects, the strength, the fascia health, the brain health, the heart health, the cardiovascular health. And so sometimes, yeah, the workout is really just about my connective tissue and keeping it hydrated because I know I was on a plane or I was driving and traveling all day. I just want to keep it loose so it doesn't start hardening and create this kind of like downward spiral.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love how holistic your approach is when you're thinking about your overall fitness and wellness. And I think sometimes people, they get I mean, a lot of people, it's even, difficult to remain consistent with any type of movement or even just a few exercises per week. So, I think some people might get stuck with, okay, I just need to, go to the gym 3 times a week and that'll be that. But you are kind of missing out on okay, am I touching point on fascia? Am I
Am I getting zone two?
Yeah,
Cardio.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Advice would you have for someone who maybe feels even overwhelmed at just the sound of like, "Oh my god, I have to do all of these things. Where do I even start?" What's a good place just to kind of enter checking some of those boxes and making sure that we're exercising intentionally?
Well, I mean, I feel like for my diet, for example, I always like to think of like, hey, not what can't I eat? Like, I'm not allowed to have sugar, I'm not allowed to have carbs or whatever. I like to think of like, okay, did I have any greens today? Did I have any protein? Did I have any like healthy fat? And just kind of like be like, what am I missing? Start there. But then also I can be more strategic and be like, okay, well, if I eat carbs too early, then I'm gonna have less focus because I'm gonna have a sugar spike, right?
Yeah.
I still want carbs, right? But I can, focus more on like proteins in the morning or after my workout. I really want to have protein. So then you can start layering knowledge and information. But I think if you just kind of start with like, hey, I did Pilates yesterday. So I did my core. Okay, what am I missing? Maybe I need to do some cardio. So cardio is something we haven't really talked about. And I'm really into like all these longevity experts like Peter Attia and David Sinclair. And the number one, Peter Attia has a really cool book called Outlive. I recently have been reading. And he says the number one predictor for longevity for our health is your VO2 max. And so that is how efficiently you use oxygen in your body.
Mm.
And, if you're 32, 38, you might not care that much, but really like longevity is like how vibrant you are, how much energy you have. Like this is longevity. So I think it's a really important to consider is like how efficiently are we using our oxygen? So whether that means, incorporating more breath work into your body. Also zone two is the really like the way to train your body to use your oxygen more efficiently is doing zone two cardio, which is, you have zone one to about zone five. And it's how high is your heart rate. So
Okay.
like doing nothing, sitting around is typically zone one or like walking. But when you go into zone two, you're having like a brisk walk where you aren't huffing and puffing at all. But it's a brisk walk and you're consistent for about 30 minutes to 60 minutes. You want to be in your zone two about 3, 4 times a week. And this is really for heart health, brain health, delivering more oxygen to your cells.
Hmm.
Um, and if your body doesn't do that efficiently, then your heart has to pump more often. So that's why you're going to have a higher resting heart rate because it has to pump way more to deliver more oxygen to your body. So that's why a lower resting heart rate is typically an indicator of good health because it means that, oh, your heart can do one pump and it's just delivered all this oxygen to your body, for example. But yeah, so I really am like making sure I walk everywhere so that I get my 30 minutes of zone two just throughout my week. And like, that's a great way to do it. Essentrics is also, I can use it for my zone two also. But yeah, so I really try to look at my workouts like, okay, am I getting my heart health stuff? Am I improving my brain function? Am I preparing myself? Like maybe you're going on, it's nice to have some sort of extrinsic motivation too, I think, where it's like, I am preparing for a trip, a ski trip, or I'm preparing for a vacation, or some sort of intrinsic motivation or extrinsic where you're getting like you have this outside goal that you're kind of working towards.
Hmm.
But then I think like really coming back to like, okay, brain health, heart health, muscle system. So maybe you want to focus a bit more on you did a lot of strengthening this week. Maybe you need to get a little bit more relaxation and recovery.
Hmm.
So kind of looking at like what's your week missing. Okay, my workout I chose yesterday was all ab focused. Maybe I need to do a little bit more leg focused. And so again, typically that's why I love Essentrics because it'd be a bit more full body rebalancing. But even within the workouts that I choose to do, like sometimes I'm not choosing them for myself. I'm choosing them because I'm teaching an athlete who needs to work on flexibility. But then I'm not doing the deep stretching. So I don't anyway. So I really try to cater it around what's missing in my week versus like, what do I have to do?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into the athlete stuff, but right before I do, you mentioned something there. So when we think about people who maybe focus on weight training only or cardio only, I'm thinking about not doing that stretching piece or not doing that lengthening piece. What could be the possible consequences or potential risks of not getting that stretching element in your workout as well?
Yeah. So basically, yeah. So when we take, let's say we're doing like a lot of running. If you look at running, how much like do your legs move when you run? Let's say you're jogging for 30 minutes. I mean, I don't have a huge pace when I jog. I might be going through like 20% of my range of motion of my legs going back and forth, right? And then I go to the office and I sit down. So now what does that range look like? Like, so sitting, you're taking your thigh bone and you're bringing it closer towards your stomach. So what is that muscle in the middle there? That's your hip flexor, your iliopsoas, which connects your leg bone in front of your hip. Actually, it originates in your lower back, your L4, L5.
Mm.
So that muscle is shortened when you're sitting, and it's not going through it's quite shortened when you're running. Also, it's extremely shortened. Plus, you add that impact. So that adds force. So that adds more shortening, repetitive, right? And then you go sit. So let's times that times a week. So how much your fascia is kind of starting to form in that shape. Now multiply that times 10 years, 20, 30 years. How many times do you go for a run a week? How long? How many steps? That's all just creating this like shortened muscle, which the fascia then starts to overlap and ultimately form in. So this imbalance is what's going to ultimately create that back pain. And it's pulling the bones together. It's pulling everything shorter and shorter and congealing. And then that's where you've got all your nerves. So your nerves are feeding through your spine, especially that lower back, L4, L5, the sciatic nerve. And that becomes irritated. And so when it becomes irritated, that's when you're dealing with pain. And that's typically the pain is actually a good thing. Pain is telling you, don't touch the hot stove.
Right.
Like, fix it. Don't do that thing, because if you didn't have pain, you would just probably let your body kind of morph into this position
Right.
that is imbalanced and not functional. And now I cannot move my leg through the full range of motion. I cannot straighten my knee because I haven't straightened my knee. So that is basically, I would say, the simple consequence of just thinking of, weight training is not bad. But are you going through the full range of motion? But you don't want to go through full range when you have extra load, because that can damage if you're on an extended, people with those weights doing all this crazy arm movements can really damage the shoulder. So it's not about just full range, but of doing it safely and just being able to work through the whole, just your joint range of motion.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for walking through that. So talking about athletes, I know you work with gymnasts, hockey players. Like, tell me what that work looks like and what they're looking for from Essentrics.
Well, what's fun with athletes is, I like to speak with athletes. I have the brain of an athlete, and knowing that their extrinsic motivation is they want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably haven't started incorporating serious stretching because so many coaches just don't, that's not their job. The coaches to make them win. But they're replaceable. Their athletes are replaceable.
Mm.
They'll just get someone younger, not injured, if their athlete gets injured, which is unfortunate because ultimately you want someone more experienced, but that's a whole other story. So the athletes usually about 24, 25 when they start realizing crap, if I want my career to last an extra few years that I've been working my whole life towards, I should probably start taking my mobility seriously. So what's fun with athletes is knowing their internal drive is just really be better at their sport. But so I think what's fun with athletes is just to help them relieve their pain. They're usually injured or in pain. But then also with the Essentrics, it's helping them with the speed to work on performing better at their sport and really understanding, I've got figure skaters right now that I'm working with, Olympic figure skaters who okay, what's your goal here? How high do you want to lift your leg?
Mm-hmm.
For your sport? Is it about lifting your leg, or is it about what do you get points in? Oh, you get points on how straight your knee is. So that's the goal for us to straighten the knee. But also, if I'm working with a regular person, the goal to straighten the knee is to go through the full range of motion and strengthen your ligaments and tendons around your knee. But I get to talk to you, motivate you by this is what you need for your sport. So we've got this drive together of why we're doing what we're doing and why this is going to help you perform, but also why this is important functionally for improving your joints, your joint function. So yeah. So I work with athletes about each athlete about 3 hours a week. And it's really fun to, we spend about an hour and a half together, especially with the ones that are really working on flexibility, because it takes about an hour to really get into those deep, deep stretches that we can now start working because we have to get those tissues really hydrated and relaxed, and then we can start.
Yeah, it must be so rewarding too to be a part of their journey to something like the Olympics or, national championships and things like that.
It is, and it's taught me so much about like just consistency and like just like keep picking away at things and keep showing up and just like storing up your energy and just kind of having faith in the process. And what's I think the most rewarding for me as their trainer is just seeing that they can consistently compete.
Mhm.
So many athletes, it ultimately comes down to whether you can play on game day. And there's so many athletes who are injured and have to sit out. And it's sad to see someone work so hard. And that's the only thing that, really brings them joy and then they can't do it. So that's what I love about that because I, had pain earlier on. And yeah, so I really love just helping them extend their career and just be able to do what they love because sports really like, yeah, that's my kind of joy in life. What makes me feel so present in the world is sports. And so you don't want something that you love to be impeded by pain, to be, that's the source of your pain also. So yeah.
Yeah. So you work with athletes. I also know Essentrics has been, a great tool for like older women who maybe can't do such intensive workouts as they once could. Is Essentrics for everybody?
Yes. Yes. The subject is for everybody. I think what makes it so great for aging people is that fascia as it builds up. It that stuff that let's say claws up your back, that is the fascia becoming stiff, but then as a result your muscles begin to atrophy, and when you have fewer muscle cells you don't have as many, so in your muscle cells is the greatest, you have the most robust mitochondria. So mitochondria, kind of a bit of a buzzword, but what it does is it takes the energy from your food and it converts it into ATP, which is like gold for your body in terms of energy currency. Like
Okay.
it makes it so you can use it for anything. So having more mitochondria, that's why having more muscle makes you have, that's why strength training, having more muscle, people know that you have a faster metabolism. So
Mm.
you don't need to do strength training to have more muscle. You just need to access and target every single muscle in your body. And so that's why for older people, it's amazing because you are loosening up the joints that have stiffened up, but you're also slowly just activating every muscle cell. So you suddenly start having more energy in your body. And you're by loosening up the fascia, you're able to access more muscle cells. And that's also what we're doing with the athletes, right? Because they, really built 60% of their muscles, like so strong. But then you've got this, like, and especially athletes, they're really good at working some muscles, but like they've never shoveled the pathway to those other muscles ever. So
Mm.
if you've got like, let's say you've got 10 guys to build a house. Now, only 5 of those guys actually know how to build the house. So would it be better to just let those 5 guys build the house? Or would it be better to take time, train the other 5 guys how to help you? And then you're going to build the house a lot faster overall with less energy wasted, right? But so often we don't want to take the time to train those other 5 guys. So we end up just we just keep overworking the same guys over and over. And that's what happens in our body. And
Mm.
it leads to pain and immobility. And yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really helpful example of how to describe that. Like you've got certain people on your team in your body who are doing way more than some others.
It's like it work too, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and sometimes it's easy just like, okay, this guy can just do the job. But like, if we actually take time and get everyone on the same page, like it comes back to like, I think that being conscious
yeah.
of what we're doing and yeah, and I think enjoying the process of it.
Absolutely. I am curious. You mentioned working a lot with athletes and seeing their motivation and discipline and learning a lot from that. Any advice for people who maybe struggle to remain consistent with their exercise practices? What would you say to them?
I think honestly, knowledge is the best thing for being motivated. We're so lucky these days with podcasts and there's so much knowledge out there. So just I think keep learning about it, listen to podcasts on it. There's there's so much interesting knowledge that ultimately then you put that into your subconscious. And that will be what, like, the reason I get up and go look at sunlight in the morning or do these things, or understanding like fat and burning fat and like actually looking at fat like an energy source and like not something like, and really understanding, okay, how do we mobilize fat? Like that's why you want to do like 30 to 60 minutes of zone two, because you actually need to mobilize the fat in your body to then burn it.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I think just knowledge and just that's I think the biggest thing, and layers of knowledge. Like I just got a whoop and like I'm so slowly acquiring all this data about my health and my body and just slowly learning little things like heart rate variability and things that and how things change over time. And I think the more that I feed myself with knowledge, the more motivated I am and the more reasons I have to eat certain foods or how to plan my day and really layer up my day. But another thing is just to layer things, layering your walking with your work or layering your workout before you study or your work, like so that you get more out of the next thing. So if I'm going to shower and wash my hair, first I'm going to do the sauna,
Right.
so that's another thing that helps me. Yeah.
Yeah, like habit stacking. I've heard of that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
That's awesome, and you're so right. Knowledge is power and so useful for us to just continue to enhance our lives and make our well-being the best it can be, which is only
Yeah.
only good. Last two questions I have for you. So, if people could take one thing away from you, your message, Essentrics, our conversation today, what would you want that to be?
I think it's really starting with why and starting with why are you doing this? What motivates you? And just kind of start with that. And really also take time to identify, like, don't just ask it on a conscious level. Really kind of take time to sit and ask, kind of go deeper into like why you want that thing. And is it just because you want to feel good, or is it because your mental health, coming back to that? And then really like, okay, are all my things that I'm choosing really gearing me towards that one thing? Or is that actually like, for example, overtraining like certain muscles in my body creates pain, which then interferes with my sleep, which then interferes with my mental health and my learning. So my mental health, my learning is the most important thing to me right now. And so I don't want what I do in my week to really be impaired in that. And so making sure that all the things in your life isn't taking away, like is you do love running because it makes you feel focused, but then is that focus being impeded by all these other variables? So maybe you just need to add a stretching component or a rebalancing component to it.
Yeah. Awesome. And then lastly, where can people learn more about you, about Essentrics, and get connected?
Yeah. Well, if you want to try Essentrics, we have a 14-day free trial, and then it's like $15 a month after that. And there's like 500 workouts. I have 60 workouts on there on eccentricstv.com. And you can try 2 weeks for free. And there's lots of really great programs to start with to actually get you in the habit of doing it every day. So you can start with like your age. So you have like, you can go to 20s or 30s age challenge is a really great place to start. We have it for every decade. Yeah. Or you can pick like a motivation too of like flexibility or something like that as well.
Amazing. Any handles you would want people to follow you at?
You can follow me at Gail Garceau.
Pop it in the show notes as well. Gail, thank you so much for your time. This was so informative and so helpful, and I cannot wait to try Essentrics.
Thank you, Ali. Have a great day.